Hey, Dan, I think we should start now.
Sure.
If you're ready. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, which will cover business communication skills. My name is Chris Burns, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development with Coggno. As most of you know, your trading partner, which is either your local chamber, PEO, payroll company, or business center, has partnered with Coggno in order to bring you and your company online training, which you can find directly on their website. These online training courses cover topics in HR, compliance, business management, sales and marketing, social media, and software, just to name a few. In addition to making this online training available to you, your training partner in Coggno will continue to host free webinars on a monthly basis, just like this one. Today's webinar will be presented by Daniel Strongin. Did I pronounce that correctly, Daniel?
Yes. There's actually two ways to pronounce it, and that's right.
Okay, great. Just some quick background on Dan. Dan is the founder of ManageNaturally.com. It's an online resource for business owners and managers dedicated to providing pragmatic, proven, effective solutions to everyday business problems. A thought leader in strategic marketing and quality administration, Dan has been helping people to do better business since 1996. That's quite a long time. He's the author of several books as well as online training courses, including How to Communicate Effectively in Business, which are available directly from your training partner's website. I also want to mention that before we get started, we'll be having a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so feel free to pass along your questions via the chat function between now and then. With that, I'm happy to present Dan. Dan?
Okay, well, everybody, welcome. I wish I could greet all of you and hear your wonderful voices, but unfortunately, the internet does have its limits, but hopefully that people who've had problems are able to solve them. If you hear me from time to time stopping, if you're in mid-sentence for a few seconds, because it flashes on the screen that somebody wants to join and I have to click it, and I've always had a problem with talking and clicking windows at the same time. Anyways, we're meeting today to talk a little bit about business communication, and nothing I'm going to tell you about today is really that radical or doesn't make sense, and but everything I'm going to tell you today is as the result of almost 4 decades of working with people, helping them do business or running a business myself, and I found one thing that seemed to be in common with almost everybody that I have been involved with in business, and that's been this communication problem. And we don't have the time in the 45 minutes plus 15 minutes for questions to go into everything, and we don't even have time to go into all of the particular class that I took this from. But I figured it would be best to concentrate on one area so you can really get something out of this time together. And that area is going to be basically writing emails. That's going to be the main focus of it. So the problem is that less than stellar communication can really undermine the ability of a company to operate effectively. It leads to crucial mistakes, political infighting, hidden losses that, in my experience, are of a size that are shocking but not easy to see, unhappy customers, and lost profit. I mean, from the time you call someone up on the phone and they pick up on it and go, yeah, and that's your experience with the company, to when there's a basic misunderstanding because of the way or the time an email was written or the timing of the email. We've all run into these problems. And some of the worst that you can suffer through are these long trailing emails where people put and you have like 17 emails, and they put their answer, which is a one-word answer, right in close with the copy of the former email. It's really hard to find the one bit of information you really need. Now, I'm going to share an example with you of an email similar to this. This is, if you're looking at it, let's see. Okay, here. This is an email. I want you to imagine this email on the screen of a BlackBerry, because that's how this was sent. They all had BlackBerries, and that was their way of communicating of choice, and they sent these emails. This is just one email. It actually was in a trail of 17 emails back and forth that were equally as long as this. Now, imagine trying, I mean, it's hard enough to read it now on the screen, but imagine trying to read it when it's on a little telephone. Okay. And then furthermore, I want you to take a second and try to read this, and I'll come in with a few comments. You know, the reason being is I want you to try to figure out what this person is talking about. And so, you know, this is the owner of the company, and he's talking to his general manager and his production manager and his head of safety. And so go ahead and take a minute and read it. So at the end of the second paragraph, you'll notice there's a reference to Rodney Dangerfield. Now, that dates someone. Not all of you may know who Rodney Dangerfield is, but he's a comedian who said he never got any respect. And if you've ever seen the movie Caddyshack, you know who he is. But the challenge that this presents is, why is he writing about that? It's almost like he's having a conversation with himself at that point and doesn't feel secure that the message he wants to get across is going to be heard. I mean, there's no one answering him in email. Email is just words on a screen. Okay, so we're going to move on. You know, you probably read about as much, but I think you will agree with me. This is pretty confusing, and the problem is that there are everything from a multi-$1,000 investment in a new processing line being discussed to a customer who is worth close to $1 million a year, and you begin to understand the problem. And this is only one of about 20 or 30 messages like this that were sent out every day. Now, I know that we all have communication problems. Not everyone has this bad of a communication problem, and I'm sure you don't. And I wanted to choose one rather than ask for some of this plight. I wanted to choose one that, you know, was obvious that there was something that was amiss. So let's talk about writing, and let's talk about writing emails. Now, what you see here is a PDF of a slides of what my classes are really like. My class is actually done and they're animated and they move, but the animation doesn't work when you're doing a webinar. So you're getting the picture, you're not getting all the fancy movement that slides into it. It's kind of elegant and cool, but all of us are suffering these days from information overload. I don't know anyone who isn't suffering from information overload, and the motto should be, if you really care about the people you're trying to communicate with and you're trying to communicate and you care about what you want to communicate, make it short and make it sweet. And if you have a lot of ideas like that email that we looked at, there's really a lot of different things that are going on there. You need to untangle those complex ideas and send more smaller emails. One idea per email with a title that relates to it, because that really has a greater chance to be read. Most people, as much as they would love to, really can't pay attention beyond the first 2 lines of an email or the first 3 lines. So when you have these long emails, if you want to get your idea across, chances are that the people are not going to get what you want them to know. And then if you have too many emails so that you've got too many ideas going on, then you need to step it up. Right? Because remember, all you have on an email is the size of a screen. And most people nowadays, or many people, are getting their emails on either an iPad or a similar device or a telephone. So if it gets to be larger than the size that can reasonably fit and be read in a large enough font on a telephone, then you really need to do 2 emails. And if you do 25 of these emails, no one's going to read all 25 of them. So if that happens, you need to do a 1-pager. And if a 1-pager isn't enough, then you need to do a full-blown report as an attachment, and you use the email to let them know you're going to send it so it doesn't get blocked, right? And to verify that they received it. And then when they have time and can concentrate, they can go back and read it and get the information they need. So, see, the question is this. There's a concept called professional standard work. It actually comes from work that was done for the United States government back in World War II when they were trying to train the housewives and the people who were nearsighted and flat-footed and the people who were too old or too young to go to war how to operate the factories. Because let's face it, all the people at that time, because the way our society was, they were mostly all men, were all men and they all went off to war. So amazingly, the government's put together a program which created the most productive workforce probably that has ever existed, made up of women, housewives. I don't know if you've ever seen that We Can Do It, which is a woman showing her arm where she's got muscles. That's all from that program. And they came up with this concept of professional standard work. Now, what does it mean? Dr. Edward Teller, who was the head of the Atomic Energy Commission and is on whom the character, if you've ever seen the film Dr. Strangelove himself was based, was known to be a very, very demanding person to work with. And he asked his assistant for a report, and the assistant brought the report to him. And the assistant waited a day, and then Teller gave the report back and said, "Is this the best you can do? Write it over again, and then give it to me." And Teller, being the kind of person that he was, did that 7 times. And finally, on the 7th time, the assistant in person delivered the report and said, "Look, Dr. Teller, I cannot edit this anymore. I can't." And so Teller took the report and said, "Okay, now I'm ready to read it." So that's the idea of professional standard work. Is what you're sending to other people with this important business information, which can have an actual impact on the flow of money and work in your company, is it written in such a way that it's ready to be read? You have to ask yourself that. If not, you still have to work. You have to keep editing until you can't find another edit. Yes, it's hard work. And yes, it's not always fun. And yes, wouldn't it be great if we could just shoot from the hip and have everybody understand us? But generally, if we're communicating with other people in business, the responsibility is on us to get our ideas across successfully. Okay, I see a message from Anthony. Anthony, are you seeing any message now? Are you seeing anything? Let me know. So anyways, the idea is to use listen speak. Now, listen speak is a term that I came up with. Is anybody else having a problem seeing the screen? No, Anthony, I think it's an individual problem. I'm not sure. Yeah, most people are seeing it fine. So it's an individual problem with your screen. Maybe you're not in the program itself, or maybe you have to enlarge the window. That's the best I can do for you. I've got to continue on. Listen speak is a concept because I was a guy in marketing, and I also work with quality and administration and operations. It always stuck with me this idea that if you want to write a good advertisement, you don't write it for yourself, you write it for the person you want to sell it to. And so much of the problem that people have in communicating comes because they don't keep the other person in mind. It makes sense to them, but it may not make sense to the person that they're talking or writing to. So, if you want to really have compassion for other people and get your point across, don't read. You know those emails where you have re-X, re-X, re-X-X, re-X, re-X, and you end up with 17 emails in the same trail. People aren't morons, right? You can just put one re in the title, or you can say about this topic, and you can have, if you need to, the first line of their last through the screen on their telephone and computer, trying to find the very important things that you're trying to tell people. Because people will miss what you're trying to say to them. And really, the best way to use re is use it once and only say, I got your message. After that, though it's extra work for you, and you're very important, but what you're trying to get across may be more important. Right? Take the trouble to redo the subject in a way that will make sense to the next person. to the person, so you don't end up with re. Okay. And don't just use old emails to send a new email to somebody else. I know we all have done it, right? We have Sarah, who's just hearing beeping. Okay. I know we've all done it, but it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it makes sense. And we don't like it when other people do it to us, because when you go back to search for that email on a very important topic, the only way you can look for it is by all the emails that you sent, or by some word in the subject. No, I'm sorry, not in the subject, by some word in the body of the email, and you have to guess at it. And it takes a lot of time to find it, and quite frankly, most people in this day and age will give up and won't have the benefit of what you're trying to share with them. So, and don't depend on spell check. How many of you, like me, have sent out emails that passed spell check but had exactly the wrong word spelled in a similar way on the page? Or where it traded a word and the whole meaning of the thing has led to all kinds of unexpected and unwanted results. Edit, edit, edit. Right? Read it over, look at it, print it, look at it printed first if it's important, okay? Don't spend 2 minutes writing an email, right? Spend between 10 minutes and an hour writing an email if it's really important. And prior to replying, check your header to see who it's addressed to. Be wary of using sarcasm and humor. Unless you know the person really well, what you write can be misinterpreted as criticism, because if you get nothing else from the course today, I hope you get that people read emails literally. There's no context. They don't know that you were joking. All they have to go by are little dark marks on a lighter screen. So be very careful to keep in mind that they read it literally. Okay? Then, thank you, Mike, for helping out Sarah and Karen. Then, simple. The that I want you to remember for writing good business communication. The first S is keep it simple. The second S is keep it straightforward. And the third is short. Simple, straightforward, novel, and publish it on the Kindle. The business communication, getting across important mission. It's just not the right place to become creative. Consider that in your own mind that you're the other person, and write it so that they can understand it. For instance, if you can't read an email right now, instead of just letting them sit there and whether you read it or not, or worse, forget about it, let them know when you'll be able to read it. It's a common courtesy. And if we apply common courtesy and respect to each other, respect each other's time, then people will respect our time. And don't use emails as a way to avoid other ways. Some things need to be done in an email, yes. Some things need. Okay, so the speaker is cutting in and out like in a tunnel. That is a problem. I'm not sure why that's happening, because it's not happening to everybody. But if it keeps up, let me know, okay? And I will switch to the not quite as good sound, but the sound that's on the computer itself with a little background noise. Okay, might have to do that. Okay. I won't talk while I'm clicking the images. So anyways, there's the telephone to communicate with people. There's meeting with them in person. Believe it or not, one of the best ways to get in communication with people is through a fax. People look at faxes because they get them so rarely, and it's a paper, it's something physical. It's not so easy to dismiss. So if you have something really important that you need to get someone's attention, you can try a fax if they have a fax machine. A letter, sometimes a letter, if it's really the right thing and it's not related to something that you need to get done quickly, is a very good way to go. Or a one-pager if you've got a lot of ideas you have to cover and email is too small. Again, if it won't fit on one phone screen, send and attach one pager. And do include a signature with how to contact the person. You'd be amazed the number of times I and other people I've worked with have gotten important information with no ability to get back in touch with the other person, right? Very often, they'll be on lists that are blind copy lists, and they forget to put the name on the top with an email to be able to get back in touch with them. And if the person has to work to find your contact information, there's a very good chance they're not going to. And unless your company requires you to, don't include those legalese things at the end that say, you know, this wasn't meant for you, send it back. If I don't want you to read it, don't read it, etc. First of all, in most of the tests that have taken place legally, they really don't stand a lot of water. But that's not the big issue. The big issue is they make people curious. So very often it's like a invitation to somebody to please look at my email that I don't want people to see. The best thing to do is take your time and make sure that you look at who you're sending it to and what you're sending them, right? Because anything you write down will eventually be seen, and usually by the very person you don't want to see it. So if it's really important and it could make some trouble for you, do it in person and not in writing. In this day and age, after the scandals that have happened to PR people, marketing people, owners of business, etc., by now people should know that if you put it in writing, someone's going to see it, especially if it's on the internet. Then, if you respect other people and you follow what I'm telling you here now, then you don't have to be like Chicken Little to get people to pay attention to you. You don't have to scream. You don't have to bold words. You only have to bold headers. You don't have to capitalize whole words because you don't have to shout. You can just use italics to emphasize when you need to, and only a few of them, because people will get short, concise emails, and they'll get used to the fact that when you send something, it's important that they take the time to look at it. Now, isn't that better than, having to worry about whether or not people are listening to you, or writing things like, like Rodney Dangerfield, I don't get no respect. Okay? Use bullet points whenever possible. They work great in emails. And follow some basic manners. It's extremely rude to forward personal emails without permission. Personal email addresses, excuse me. You wouldn't like it. The other person wouldn't like it. So ask somebody first. When someone wants to get introduced, I always say, okay, but I need to ask the other person if it's okay. Then I'll introduce you. I don't just automatically copy them and say, Joe, this is Jim, and you guys got to meet and do things. I think that's an invasion of people's personal space. And it'll pay off with them respecting yours. And also, if you use BC, if you don't have permission, if you look at your list and even one person you don't have permission to send it, use BC. C, if you're sending to a lot of people, use blind copy, the BCC. Address it to yourself, they can get back to you and they know who it's from. But that way, you're not sharing someone's email to other people without their permission. Okay? The idea is to target who gets each email. The idea is to don't think about how to make it easy for me. Think about how you can be more effective in your communication. So you only include people that need it. I stopped using email lists because I kept making mistakes. And one of my clients made a terrible mistake and sent proprietary information to an angry former employee because they were on the list, and that information ended up in the hands of a competitor, and there was nothing they could do about it. It's not uncommon for people to send business information to people who no longer work in the company or even to competitors if you are using lists. So be very careful of using them. Remember again, don't put anything in writing you aren't comfortable with being seen. We're going to watch this slide, then we're going to take a short break, and Chris is going to talk to you a little bit. But on this slide, it's about instant messages. And unless you are very, very disciplined, instant messages are good for gossip, they're good for call me, but they're not very good for business communication. They have even less context than an email. And unfortunately, they don't have the rules like Twitter where you can only use 149 characters, so it forces you to think, right? Anything more than I need to talk, call them on the phone because it's the wrong medium. Don't leave one of those messages, Joe, I need to talk to you about X, Y, Z, et cetera. Just say, look, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you right away. I need to talk to you by tomorrow. When's a good time? Something like that, which shows respect for them. And then the problem with the instant messages, they can really increase your chance of misunderstanding. Okay, so Chris, I am now going to, in just a second, going to hand over. What I'm going to do is unmute everyone and then put it back into question and answer mode. Okay, we have about 3 seconds to talk. Okay, Chris, the stage is yours. I guess you can hear me. Chris is probably at this point using his keypad in order to, okay. No, I can't hear you, Chris. It muted. I'll try again. I'm going to unmute everybody, but please, everyone, try to leave yourself muted because otherwise it really becomes like a kind of a madhouse of sound, unfortunately. So let me do that. I will unmute completely. For some reason, it's not working the way it's supposed to. Okay, Chris, can you hear me?
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. That might have
no problem.
That might have been user error on my end, so sorry about that.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to give Dan a brief break here and say that I know we have a kind of a short time today, only 40 to 45 minutes with a little time for Q&A. So it's tough for Dan to get into all the specifics of business communication. But with that said, I want to let you know that Dan has a lot of courses that are related to this topic that are on your training partners' websites. And through April 11th, all of today's attendees here at the webinar will receive an exclusive 20% discount on any of the courses you see listed there. We're going to send out an email later today, which will include the coupon code that you see for your discount. So it's an opportunity for you to pick up some fantastic training at a discount. And I promise you the sound will be better in the courses. Also, I mentioned that if you purchase now, you actually have access to the course or courses for up to a year. So that's my little speech, and I want to give it back to Dan. Oh, one last thing. Feel free to send any questions that you have or any horror stories related to business communication through the chat, and we'll address them towards the end of Dan's talk. Thanks very much. Back to you, Dan.
I just muted everybody so we won't have a lot of background noise when we get to questions. I have just what I want to just go over that email that we'll take a few minutes and go over it. But I want to give you a couple of rules for actually writing an email that we want to apply to this email. And I'm going to have you guys look at the email and spend about 5 minutes on your own and write some quick examples and then send them through the chat. It's the best we can do for interactive in this kind of email. In this kind of webinar. So first of all, the first rule of writing for business writing is never use a $5 word when a $1 word will do. Sometimes when we write, we get into this idea that if we use a really either a professional term or a word that's a $5 word, or I guess nowadays it would be a $25 word, that people will understand us better and think we're smarter, et cetera. It's not true in business communication because you don't know the audience always that you're sending it to. It's best to use very, very simple wording, simple phrases about the level of a newspaper, which is about 10 to 15 years old reading level. That way, if you can get it across there, yes, exactly, Anthony, like jargon. It's not a good idea to use jargon. We'll get into that in a second. It says, right from their point of view. That's the listen speak. That's the advertiser in me. It's don't write from your point of view. If you want to get across to somebody if they're using too many paper towels in the bathroom, right? Writing, you're using too many paper towels in the bathroom, with global warming, that's not going to work. What's going to work is to find something that's going to get their interest, that's going to win them over, that you're, in a sense, selling the idea to them. So you're phrasing it from their point of view. I mean, it may not be elegant, it may not be wonderful, but it's what works, okay? Then edit again and again and again. Like I said, edit until you can't edit anymore. Less is more. If you can't get it into a single screen, which should be your first goal on a phone, then your second goal should be to get it into a one-pager. And if you can't get it into a one-pager, then get into a report. But remember, a report is a lot more work. And in the class, I go into the elements that you need to have in a one-pager in a report, when you need to have a summary, when you need to have a conclusion, and why. Right? And also use at least 14-point fonts. It's important to remember that a large number of your audience is going to be over 50 years old, and most of these people have problems with losing a little bit of their vision, and they can't read too well without glasses on. So, if you've ever seen, like some of the owners that I worked with, some of them are in their late 50s and 70s, to see them trying to work with a BlackBerry and read what's on the screen and use their it's a torture. So have a little compassion for them. Then separate your writing into 3 steps and don't mix them up. The first step is a mind dump. That's basically that email that we saw. That's where you just write everything you want to write. You don't worry about it, whether it's written well. You don't worry about it. Someone's going to get pissed off reading it. You get out what's in you on that sheet of paper. It's a mind dump. Don't mix criticizing or don't mix editing and correcting with a mind dump. In cognitive science, which I go into a little bit more in depth in the overall business communication class, our minds are hardwired to work certain ways. And the part of our mind that works with divergence, or forgive me for the $5 word, lots of ideas at the same time, doesn't work so well with the part that works at trying to clarify and make sense or organize information. So we need to separate them into separate steps. The second step is to cut and paste to tell a story. This is called convergence. That's the $25 word. Cut and paste to tell a story is the $1 word. So, no more than one page, preferably enough to fit on a screen. You organize it, and you organize it by moving similar things together. Then you decide the order of what you're going to do. You can make priorities. You can decide at that point, wait a minute, I have 3 emails here. I have 4 emails here. I have 1 email here. And then be sure to include a date, a greeting, because it's good manners, some kind of headline that has something to do with what you're writing about. And if it's a one-pager, a summary at the top, so the person, if they're not going to read the whole thing, which there's a very good chance they won't, at least can get the ideas of what you want. And finally, end the supporting information. And for really important data you want to get across, one of the tricks is to use the PS. For some reason, people will not read an entire email, but they see the PS and they read that. So it's a little trick. Now, then the last step is slice and dice. Edit, then edit again, make it smaller, tighter. Cut out duplication. Be merciless. Right? If you're doing a one-pager, no more than one page. If you're doing email, no more than what fits on the screen. Anything more needs a full report. And be simple, objective, direct. Leave the creative at home. So practice your 3 S's, which are simple, straightforward, and short. Okay, so the steps are mind dump, which we already have done for us because that's exactly what the owner of that company did, is mind dump and then send it. Cut and paste to tell a story, and then slice and dice until you can get it at least 3 times, but preferably for an important email until you absolutely cannot find any more edits to make it as streamlined as you possibly can. Okay, so I want you to all to take, we have about 4 minutes that we can take on this and leave a little time for questions. I want you to take a look at this and see if you can real quickly come up with an email that covers all of it, or if looking at it, because we're at the slice and dice to tell a story stage, maybe there's a few emails in here, so choose one and put it into, following those rules, into simple, straightforward, and short, and in $1 words, not $5 words. So see what you come up with, and when you get it done, put them up there. I won't be able to see everybody if there's too many people here, but I'll be able to see some of them. Put it up in your chat, and then we'll share some of them, and then I'll give you some of the ones that examples I gave in the course. Okay? So at this point, I suppose we should have interlude music. It's 3:40 by my clock, which is 11:40 Pacific. And so I'm going to give you about another 3 minutes. Okay. Holly, I will give you an example in just a minute. Absolutely. Okay, by now you should probably be writing if you haven't. If you aren't, you're going to get something on the screen in time. If you have something done, go ahead and put it up there. If you're sitting there thinking this guy is crazy asking us to do this and you're not doing it, that's okay too. So while you guys are doing that, I'm going to go over Holly's question about, so how would you say to someone who's using menu towels that, giving an example? Okay. Okay. Holly, it's, again, following the simple idea, you put everything on a sheet of paper. So the first thing you do is write, you're such a, you're wasting tons of stuff, you're polluting the planet, you're a selfish person, other people go in, they can't get it. You put all that down and be sure to throw out that copy. Then from out of that, you want to reorganize it and look for the most important points, the ones that are most direct and straightforward and to the point. So after that, you edit it down, and what you probably come up with is something like, dear crew, I've noticed, starting with the fact, I've noticed that we're using an awful lot of paper towels. Not only are the paper towels expensive, but we all like to do something to help out the environment. So I'm asking everybody if they could please pay more attention to not use the paper towels excessively. Something like that. Simple, straightforward. Sometimes we worry too much about what people are going to think about what we say, and that makes it worse because people will play on that emotionally. Some people will. Other people will misunderstand the context and feel insulted. So you're better off just putting the facts. Yes, you could use bullet points. Yes, Anthony. And also, let's read some of these and see what we got, and then I'll share mine, and then we'll... Okay. From Bonnie comes, John, please contact me so we can go over some inventory issues. Thanks, Bob. Great. Great. Because with all the detail he wants to go over, it shouldn't be on paper anyways. They should have either a phone-to-phone, face-to-face, voice-to-voice. Great. Yvonne wrote, John, we have some inventory issues that I would like to discuss right away. Please give me a call so we can resolve a few problems we're having. P.S. I'm available anytime for your call. You can reach me at, that's very good too. Okay. Could have done one more edit. There's a little bit of duplication in it, but very good. Okay. Bullets. And Jess says, great response, Bonnie H. Yes, it's a very good. Okay. Ryan asks, should we, here, let me do this and then I'll get to the questions. Ryan had a question, should we leave exclamation points and bullet points, smileys out of our emails? You know, a visual thing sometimes can be nice. It can be quick, but make sure it's with somebody you know who you're talking to, right? Not everybody has the same sense of humor as you, and if you're dealing with people in an older generation, they don't know what the smileys mean, right? I have a terrible thing to admit to you. It wasn't until last year that I knew what IMHO and LOL meant. I had to go online and look for it. So it's better if you know the person used them. If not, keep it simple. And then send them another email later on that's friendly and lighthearted. Color you can use when appropriate. Color also is subtle, but don't go with red and yellow. Go with your more subtle colors, just like italics. The subtle colors will tell people that you're not screaming. That's important, but you're not screaming at them. Okay. Let me show you now a better version of John's email, right? My version. We are in short an inventory on the following items in El Paso, item X, item Y. Would it be better to write a regular sales order for inventory items? The customer is complaining. Please advise. Bob. Okay? Then I won't share the reasonable response now because that's used purposely in the class, but I'll show you the second email. Okay, there's one. Now there's the second email. John, the machine has arrived in the warehouse ready to ship to you as soon as possible. Main office is sending the parts list and manual so you can plan installation. The height to feed the hopper is 69.5 inches so you can get a head start. Please write up a quick summary of how you intend to install so I'm in the loop. Hopefully we can avoid the sins of the past this time. Thanks, Bob. Great. Everything you wanted to say is there, right? And he doesn't insult the person by telling him how to do it step by step, but he gives them the one piece of information that really is important for him to be able to do it right, the height of the hopper. Okay? And then, an even better response from John. Bob, please have them expedite the machine delivery to us as we are short on time. We'll need a couple of months to install at best, which we don't have. Best solution for now is install where it was, live with a less than perfect, the devil you know, then follow up immediately after the season in detail when we have enough time to do the job properly. Proposal to include manpower, machines, material, and method plus flow. I'll write the proposal as soon as I can and we can discuss at the monthly projects meeting. Now, what happens here? Number one, it's very clearly defined, and all of the issues are addressed in a way that Bob can work with. Bob can understand that the season started and they don't have enough time to get the job done based on all the other jobs they do. Bob doesn't see that when he's sitting in the main office. So that information is supplied. There's one of my classes, and in the big class, there's a section on operational definitions that goes into how many mistakes happen because we don't provide reasonable definitions of what we're talking about in terms of time, resources, people, that reasonable people can do business with. Okay? So, summary. Do a mind dump, cut and paste to tell a story, edit, then edit again, that's to clarify the flow. Then key points, simple, straightforward sentences, less is more, and use 14-point font for readability, especially for people over 50. Now, what we have here is a list of all my courses, and I'm going to stop it on a list of some of the courses that I'm working on that I actually have the information done for, so you guys can get an interest, if any of these would interest you, and get in touch with your contact, and they can get in touch with Chris and let me know which of these I should get started on right away trying to build the information for you. I mean, I have a lot of years of experience in this, and it's hard to know which is the one that's going to be most useful to you in your situation. And if you think of anything else, please do too. So with that, I'm going to try to open this up to questions and answers. Let me see. Chris, you can write to me. Should I do it by opening up the phone lines, or should we do it by people sending in questions and answering it that way? What do you think is going to work best? You've had experience with this. I suppose I should have asked this before. I apologize to everybody. Okay. Probably by chat. Okay, so let's keep it like this. If I don't understand it, then I'll open up the lines. How's that? So does anybody have any questions, any further questions? No. One of the many Coggno webinars, because they signed in as Coggno webinars, left. Okay, Chris, I'm going to then undo the mute and anything you want to add, Chris?
Yeah, no. I just there were a couple questions here that I had to step away for a second. I wasn't sure if that were addressed about leaving out exclamation points and smileys out of emails. If you were able to respond to that. Oh, you did. Okay, great. I did have one question. When sometimes I get an email that has a lot of people that are on the have been copied on the email, and I feel like sometimes rather than there's certain people on the email, I don't want to see my response, and I want to take them off the reply all. Kind of what the etiquette is there. There's been back and forth.
I would send 2 emails. One that everybody can see since they were on the list, so it doesn't come back at you later that why did you leave me off the list? Because people are paranoid. They notice those things. And then I would send a separate email to the people I wanted to send the response to. I'd be a little bit diplomatic. It takes a minute longer, but it eliminates, 4 months down the road when the person's angry at you because they found out that the person sitting next to them got the email response and you didn't, then you'll solve having to deal with that, which is a lot more work.
Okay, good point. Anybody else have any questions that they want to say verbally here? Okay. Well, I want to thank Dan and thank everybody for taking the time today to attend the webinar. My apologies that we're having some issues with the sound, but we're going to try to clean that up. We recorded the webinar, so when we get that cleaned up a bit, we'll send out a link so all of you have access to it. Lastly, I want to mention that we'll send out that email with the coupon code this afternoon, so keep a lookout for that. And lastly, the next webinar is set for later this April, and it will cover negotiation skills. So we'll send out some details on that shortly. Thanks again, and thank you, Dan, and have a nice day, everyone. Take care.
You bet. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it.